Yes, it's sitting right next to me. You want it? Did you write everybody? Did you write everybody you have to call out for the next 145 minutes? You have to put the phone over here. I don't do it, right? What? Do I have to start the thing? That's where I am. Oh. Huh? Yes? Load? Is everybody there? Who's going to be part of this presentation? It's a new one for me. I saw a few people raise their hands. Steve raised his hand. Okay. So in Esther, 4 participants, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. I'm sorry. Sorry. This is my first time at this. 10, 11. Okay. 12. As I saw, there were 22 people registered. 13. All right. I'm go. In another minute, I'm going to begin. Because I understood I was waiting for someone to give me a vocal call. Anyway, it said 10, 11 people raised their hand. That's like that. Oh, okay. Okay. I got the cue from my wife. She says, if 10, 11 people raise their hand, then you should begin. Okay. My name is Yehuda Singer, and I am broadcasting from Mitzpeh Yericho. That's about a half an hour northeast of Jerusalem, on the way out to the Dead Sea. In fact, from my house, you can see Jericho, and actually the whole Jordanian Valley and the Dead Sea, which is pretty much what we'll be talking about tonight. The name of the lecture is, you could see the discovery of the biblical Gilgal. And before I go any further, I just wanted to say, I put that little watercolor there in the middle, just to remind us that for hundreds and hundreds of years, most of there wasn't really any inquiry about where is Gilgal, or where was any other particular place in the Bible. It was something in the holy books, and that's where it remained. But in the 19th century, there was a reawakening in Europe and North America, a religious revival, and lots of people rediscovered their interest in the Bible. That was many of the Gentile community, and they sent exploration groups to the Holy Land to look for information, to verify. And also among the persecuted Jewish communities in Europe and Russia, there was also increased desire to return to their heritage homeland. And what increased Jewish immigration led to an interest in the discovering of the names and locations of the site in the Bible. Okay, let's begin. A few questions that we will attempt to answer. Does the name Gilgal relate to a specific location? If so, which location? Or is it a generic name? Who is Adam Zartal, and what did he contribute to the discovery of Gilgal? Let's look at the first place that the word Gilgal, name Gilgal appears. It appears 39 times in the entire books of the Bible. But let's begin where it first shows up first in Devarim Yud Aleph. That's Deuteronomy chapter 11. When we read, when the Lord your God has brought you into the land you are entering to possess, you are to proclaim on Mount Gerizim the blessings and on Mount Abel the curses. So we now know we have a mission. We have to get across the Jordan and head towards these two mountains where there will be blessings and curses. But more information is given. They are across, these mountains are across the Jordan, just beyond the Sunset Highway, on the way to Gilgal, near the plains of Moreh, in the territory of the Canaanites who live in the floodplain. These are landmarks. Gilgal is one of them to help you, the children of Israel, navigate your way to your destination in Mount Gerizim and Mount Abel, where you will receive blessings and curses concerning your fulfillment of the 613 commandments that were given at Sinai. This is a renewal of the Sinaitic covenant. Gilgal is in close proximity to Mount Gerizim and Mount Abel. We'll keep that in mind. Moving on to the actual actualization of what they were told to go across the Jordan. Well, here we have it in Yoshua Daled, in the book of Joshua, where it says, and the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, meaning Nisan, and encamped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan did Joshua set up in Gilgal. So a few things. We have the 10th day of the first month is the day we know the children of Israel cross across the Jordan River. And for those people who live in Israel, it's worth your while to go on the 10th day of the first month to a place called Kasser El Yahud and actually see the actual place, that general area where they crossed across the Jordan River. Now, they were told to take 12 stones, ostensibly one for each of the 12 tribes. But the 12 stones presented an opportunity for the younger generation to question, what do these stones symbolize? We'll entertain questions at the end. Similar to the question asked at the Passover Seder by the child, in which the older generation retells the story of the Exodus from bondage in Egypt. Here, however, the emphasis is on the crossing of the Jordan and entering into the promised land. Like I said, we're continuing, but we'll have questions at the end to keep it going. Here's another picture, graphic rendition of the crossing across the Jordan River. We're looking up from the Dead Sea facing north, and you could see that there are two sides to the Jordan River with mountain ranges both on the the Jordanian side, and on the on the western side. And you see it's labeled African tectonic plate. And the other one is Arabian tectonic plate. You should know that these are two plates of the surface of the earth that are moving. They are moving in different directions. One is moving north and one is moving south. It's not moving at such a fast rate that it will shake me off my chair, but as I talk to you, it's moving. It moves 1 centimeter a year. In the next chapter in Joshua, chapter 5, we read, "And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Whereas the name of that place was called Gilgal unto this day, and the children of Israel camped in Gilgal, and they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho." When we mentioned before coming up out of the Jordan River, I didn't go into detail, but the Ark of the Covenant was carried by the priests, the Kohanim, and when they stepped into the water of the Jordan, everything ceased. It was a splitting of the sea in a smaller manner than down at the Red Sea, but it split. And actually, some people feel that the water stopped from where Gesher Adam, which is called the Damia Bridge, which is miles up to this area, which would have allowed for all of the children of Israel not to get on a line, which would take days, but actually to stand shoulder to shoulder and walk across at the same time, basically, and cross the Jordan River. But once they got on this side, they realized they had another few days before the celebration and the providing of the sacrificing of the Passover offering, and they needed to do something they had not done for 40 years. They had not performed the circumcision on all the males due to, perhaps the rabbis at the time would say that they were afraid that the climate conditions in the Sinai desert would have been adverse to any child having his circumcision, so they did not perform any for those 40 years. And now was the first time that they did it. So what is this reproach of Egypt? What is this that is rolled away, that is taken away? One explanation is that so far the Israelites were in all, down to it, they were the same as the Egyptians because they did not perform the circumcision. So once they did, they actually took off this reproach of Egypt. Another explanation is that all the while that these children in Israel, they may have exited, they may have left their bondage, but they were wandering around in circles, maybe in the wilderness, and they never came to the promised land. So once they crossed across the Jordan and they were heading towards Gilgal, or Gilgal, this was a sign of removing the reproach of Egypt. Another piece of information that some commentator mentioned was, we saw in Devarim, in chapter 12 of Deuteronomy, that we mentioned what are landmarks, how do you find the Mount Avel and Mount Gerizim? We mentioned Gilgal. So the name of Gilgal was known prior to this story of the circumcision. So it's possible that after this was done, another layer, another explanation was added on to the name Gilgal on top of its original meaning. Okay, moving on. In the book of Judges, we read about someone named Ehud. Ehud was one of the leaders, and he was coming back from what this translator said were quarries that were by Gilgal. He mentions Gilgal again, just like previously in the other books. And he says, I have a secret errand for you, O king of the Moabites. He means he's talking to Eglon. And Eglon said, keep silent, and told all the people in the room to exit. And that's when Ehud took advantage of the situation and he assassinated the king of Moab. So let's look at this word psilim. That he came from psilim. Pesel means, one meaning of it is that it means idol. And that was sidestepped by the Targum Onkelos because he didn't want to he wanted to avoid any objectionable reference to idols. They were connected with the sanctuary of Gilgal because they were marked by a circle of sacred stones, traditionally those which Joshua set up to commemorate the crossing of the Jordan. This site, it could have been that Eglon took these sanctified stones that were previously put there by Joshua, and he made them into idols. This could have been which animated Ehud to assassinate Eglon. Now we move on to the book of Samuel. First book of Samuel, chapter 7. And Samuel, went from year to year in circuit to Bethel and Gilgal and Mitzpah, and he judged Israel in all those places. That's where the terminology we hear, circuit judge, that comes from Samuel, because he would make the circuit. He would go around from one place to another, and he would judge the people's court cases. Yeah. Despite the fact that the tabernacle is now situated in Shiloh, the prophet Samuel still makes the rounds to historically important sites such as Gilgal, because it says Ha-Gilgal. It's used in Hebrew. It's the indefinite article preceding the name Gilgal. So it's talking about a specific place. Its sacrifices were offered there. Judicial sessions were held there. The National Assembly convened there. And also the army under Joshua was mustered there prior to going out to battle. It was probably selected for these purposes on account of its historical associations and its remoteness from the Philistines, whose invasions had pushed the center of gravity of the kingdom back to the banks of the Jordan. Another case where we have Ha-Gilgal with the Hey Hayediyah, the indefinite article Hey, V'yashav HaMelech Yavoa Ad Har Yarden. So the king, David, returned and came to the Jordan, and the representatives of the tribe of Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to bring the king over the Jordan. Well, where was the king? The king's son, Absalom, had rebelled against him, and he had to run for his life and moved and went all the way across to Transjordan, and until the rebellion was put down and Absalom was killed by Yoav, David's chief of staff. So now King David is returning. He came to the Jordan River, and the representatives met him. As Gilgal lay upon the west bank of the Jordan near Jericho, and the fords, it was a convenient place for the elders of Judah to wait there for the king. Here's another map that explains in a little bit more detail with quotes. I will put on my laser pointer to show the path that David followed to come to the Jordan River and to cross across the Jordan River to Gilgal, Jericho, and then up towards Jerusalem. We see Ha-Gilgal is mentioned again with the Hey Hayediyah, the indefinite article, a specific Gilgal mentioned in the book of Kings, because when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way, and there was a school for prophets in Gilgal, where Elijah and Elisha's students received personal instruction. The route of the journey that Elijah traveled prior to his farewell is symbolic. It actually goes in reverse of the way the children of Israel came into the country. His first station was the Gilgal, where the message to Elisha was to teach the people to fear God. Here is a map pointing out all the different activities of Elijah and Elisha throughout the country. This is, thanks to Wikipedia, this is the mosaic map of Midva, is the oldest known geographic floor mosaic in art history. It is used heavily for the localization and verification of biblical sites. Most of you who've been to Israel, read, are familiar with the only part of this map. I am circling it with my laser. You know the part that discusses the Cardo and all the different sites around the Cardo in Jerusalem. But that's not our topic of discussion. Here we see number one. In Greek it says Gilgal, and it is very juxtaposed right next to another one that says Jericho. So, evidence of the location of Gilgal being in close proximity to Jericho is seen in the Midva map. Till now, we have found many instances where the name Gilgal relates to a specific place in the vicinity of Jericho and the place where the children of Israel crossed the Jordan River. Here is two examples where the name is not about a specific place, but rather a generic name. In Joshua 12, appears a list of kings in Canaan, which were vanquished by Joshua and his army. And it says, Melech Goyim leGilgal. And again in Joshua 15, where it says, HaGilgal asher nochach lemala adumim asher minegev lenachal. That is the geographical boundaries between the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. It translates that Gilgal, that is opposite the ascent of Adumim. Some people, you know where Maladumim is, which is south of the Ravine. I listed here six major archaeological sites in the Jordan Valley, which were discovered and explored. But I didn't tell you who was responsible for them. His name is Professor Adam Zartal, and I will talk about him. I just want to show a short clip. Professor Adam Zartal was born in a kibbutz called Ein Shemer, which is part of it, the Shomer HaTzair movement, socialist movement, an irreligious kibbutz. He was wounded during the Yom Kippur War on the Suez Canal, and he needed to recuperate. He was in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem for 12 months. When he finally got released, he decided that he wanted to study archaeology, and he went to study it, and he later on becomes a professor in the University of Haifa. Well, he spent 35 years investigating this whole area, the Jordanian Valley and the Samaria. I'm gonna play a. This is in the 1990s, where he is doing a special survey of the Mount Menashe. This is Professor Adam Zartal. You see him with the crutches, like I said.
לבנים הקטנות, אם היה פה קיר. אנחנו ממפים ארכיאולוגית את האזור מבית שאן לים המלח ומהירדן ועד השרון.
Says they mapped out everywhere from the Beit Shan Valley all the way down to the Dead Sea, and from the Sharon to the Jordan River. Zartal decided to deviate from his standard methodology, which was on the ground, and began to survey aerial photographs of the area. And what he found was a geoglyph. The geoglyph is defined in the free dictionary online.com as a large design or drawing created on the surface of the earth, as by positioning stones or removing earth or surface rock to create lines or spaces that contrast with the surrounding terrain. Like I said, he discovered something I'm going to show you in the next. It was in the shape of a foot. Here it is. This is an aerial photograph. It's not hard to make out. You see this something in the shape. Some people call it a sandal. Some people call it the right foot, but it's very easily to discern. These are his identifications. Number one, he claims, Adam Zotal, that this is the entrance. The entrance, I'll point it out with the laser. You come in through the entrance and you walked around the processional path. What was the procession? You probably had the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant around and placing it here in number 4 in the hall. And if they needed be for sacrifices, they did that here on the altar. Number five was the mezzanine. That was a sloped part of the hill overlooking this area. So that provided plenty of space for people to sit, thousands of people to view what was happening. Now, if his theory about the foot-shaped sites is correct, then one should be logically found on the border of the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. The shape is that of a giant right foot, and the location where it can clearly be viewed is at Argaman, which we're looking at now, in the Jordan Valley. All foot-shaped sites are situated on level ground, demonstrating there is no topographical necessity for this specific shape, but rather its shape is ideological. What does he mean as opposed to what? Well, most pagan cult sites that are found in the Near East are found in very high places, and that's where they worship their pagan gods. This was not in a high spot. This is a level ground and with no topographical advantage to it, height. Only one site was fully reconstructed in the following diagram. That was in Argamon, and the following diagram was used as a prototype to explain the common characteristics of the others. Here we are looking at, from Argamon, from the point of the mezzanine, from that slope, looking down at the what do we say? Oh, here we go. The Gilgal Mountains is in the far distance. Then another place that we know about in the Bible is Penuel, where Jacob fought with the angel prior to his meeting of his brother, Esau. These are the recent date palms that were planted by the people in the cooperative Moshav, Argaman. And 4 is the stone platform where they presumably placed the tabernacle during its stay. Here is a platform. 3 courses of stones have survived. Okay, and this you could see is a sketch of where the stones and the walking in and the procedural and the platform structure of the foot of that facility. Okay, the altar on Mount Avel is one of his key feathers in his cap. Of course, for years, he was a pariah in the academic world, even past his discovery, because nobody would believe him that the children of Israel entered into the land of Israel and that they built any kind of altar on Har Eval. Well, he made a sketch of this and he's holding it up. We see Professor Zatal is holding it up on the right-hand side. And Tzvi Königsberg, a resident of Shovei Shimon, happened to be there and saw him holding the sketch and jumped up from his seat as if bitten by a snake. Adam Zartal writes in his book, Am Nolad, the people of Israel have been born, runs outside and disappears. After a few minutes, reappears breathless, running with a small brown book in his hand, the tractate of Midot, found in Kedoshim, one of the orders of the Mishnah, the oral law. It was chapter 3, which dealt with the laws of the altar in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Except for certain details, it matched my Zartel's sketch. Here is one that I told you that occurred actually later than the other 5 in 2012. This is in Rimonim, near the Rimonim in Binyamin. This is where I started to think, is there any symbolism in the construction of this facility? Well, Frank Lloyd Wright, one of America's top architects, was engaged in 1953 by the Beth Shalom Jewish community in Philadelphia to build them a new synagogue. The building is hexagonally paced, partly to represent the shape of the Jewish holy star, Magen David, Star of David, and partly to recall the feel of 2 joined hands, because Wright felt that a place of worship should have the feel of being in God's very hands. This impression is emphasized by a pair of extensions at the front of the building that represent the thumbs of a pair of joined hands. The main entrance is shaped with a covering which resembles the Kohanim, priest blessing gesture made by the Israelites on entering the tabernacle. And the building's 3 vertical ridges are clearly decorated with menorah. The concept of a foot in the Bible and its historical meaning. We have 4. Ownership of territory, connection between the people and the land of Israel through the concept of foot, surrendering of the enemy by virtue of foot, and connection to the foot, to the temple, comparison of the temple to the foot of God. Well, let's see. First one, ownership of territory. We see in Devarim, we were there when we started our lecture, in Devarim, Deuteronomy 11. Every place wherein the sole of your foot shall tread shall be yours, etc. The concept of foot, connection between the people and the land of Israel. In Chronicles 2, chapter 33, neither will I anymore remove the foot of Israel from out of the land which I have appointed for your fathers, so that they will take heed to do all that I have commanded them, according to the whole law and the statutes and the ordinances by the hand of Moses. The third, I suppose most interesting, surrendering of the enemies by a symbolic gesture of the victor over the vanquished. This is a miniature replica of the Tiglath-Pileser, king of Syria in the 8th century for the Common Era, in its ancient capital in Nimrod. He is wearing his crown and carrying his staff of kingship in his right hand. He's putting his foot upon the neck of his enemy. The original is located at the British Museum. The verse in Isaiah says, kings and queens will serve you and care for all your needs. They will bow to the earth before you and lick the dust from their feet. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Those who trust in me will never be put to shame. And fourth and last concept of foot in the Bible is comparison of the temple to the foot of God. Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool, Isaiah writes. Could you build me a temple as good as that? Could you build me such a resting place? It symbolizes the evolving process of an idol-worshiping nation into one which believes in invisible, abstract God. There is no physical description of God, but rather the subtle imagery of his presence. Another concept we're familiar with, Aliyah L'Regel, which we translate meaning pilgrimage. Now, the important Hebrew term Aliyah L'Regel now has an additional meaning. It is simply understood to mean the arrival of the ancient Israelite population to participate in a ceremony at foot-shaped sites upon crossing the Jordan River until hundreds of years later at the establishment of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Some more information about those sites. In addition, bones from sheep and cattle, animals which meet the Torah's requirement for sacrifices, and characteristic utensils from the period of the conquest were discovered in these sites. You know that the Canaanites were known to be, they would eat from pigs. So if they don't find any pigs in any of these sites, kind of eliminates any Canaanites being in that section, in a particular area. Another thing that's apropos, the word chug, chug meaning to dance, or chag meaning the holiday. Ceremonial and element appears in different sources in the Bible. One in Joshua, Savutam et ha'ir. We know that before they came from the Jordan, and they moved on. They moved to, after Gilgal, they moved to conquer the city of Jericho. They marched around the city with all the armed men, and they did this for 6 days. And the 7 priests carried trumpets of rams' horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, they marched around the city 7 times, and then the walls, the song says, they came tumbling down. But I don't think that they came tumbling down. They may have sunk into the ground from what I saw with my own 2 eyes. And another place in Psalm 26 says, Asovava et mizbachacha Hashem. Again, to go around, which is probably what they did when they were down in one of these facilities that were identified by Professor Adam Zartan. Conclusions. We asked ourselves in the beginning, is this a generic name? Is this a specific site? Well, I think that it could be a generic name and a specific name. The necessity of a place for the entire nation to congregate, or to coronate a king, to offer sacrifices, or to muster the military forces, in the case of Joshua, prior to departing to battle. And I quote here from Samuel, book 1, chapter 11, where Samuel said to the people, let us go to Gilgal and renew the monarchy for coronating King Saul. And again, specific name for places like we encountered around Jericho, and for performing of the circumcision and for doing the Passover ceremony, and other places that we mentioned. So I kind of mentioned it could be either or both, or both. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for their attention. Now, okay, stop share. Okay. If anybody has anything to add or comment, okay, chat. I'm over here. Okay. Oh yes, other parts of my ID. Yeah. Say this after. Not those reconstruction. Yes. Yeah. That picture that you see when you go to Argaman is after he did his reconstruction. Correct. It's worthwhile visiting that if you're down in the Jordanian Valley. You go out of your way. Was there just the right foot? Yeah, I think they're just right feet, as far as I understood. No left foot, if I understand correctly. It's a fascinating thing that Adam Zartal did by going up, because today it's very, every kid today asks for a present for answering the questions at the Seder table to buy him. His father should buy him one of these helicopters that go up. So today everybody can do what Adam Zartal did by looking at aerial photographs. So everybody could join in. Any other questions before I sign off? Thank you for having attention and being such good students.